The Strain Podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Guillermo del Toro's horror fantasy series, The Strain. We are currently covering the series' third season on FX. I'm your host, Blaire and Kyle, executive producer and host of Professional Geek Podcast, and with me today is Kyle Tremblay, the editor-in-chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at BlaireLovesTV and at KyleLovesTV. And remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. And you can follow this podcast's Twitter handle at The Strain Pod. And don't forget to play hashtag The Strain Bingo with us every week for a chance to be on our show. And we're very excited at the end of this episode, our very first winner of hashtag The Strain Bingo will be joining us, so stay tuned. Hi, Kyle. How are you doing today?
Oh, Blaire, we are back, and we are back in more ways than one. I'm just gonna be silently, slowly singing "Hello, Darkness, My Old Friend" throughout this recording.
I think we should just play it underneath the whole time.
Oh, the sound of silence, just playing as a dirge during this podcast.
Yes, our funeral march as we move forward.
You know, when I was a young, hopeful man last week, I said some things that were optimistic. I was all about hope and change, and now I'm just about grim reality.
It's all settling in. It's all coming back.
Oh, it hurts. The apocalypse is upon me. I'm being dramatic. I didn't hate this episode. I'm going to say up front.
Okay, well.
I'm setting an extremely dark tone that we hopefully lighten throughout the podcast.
Yes, I hope so too. Today, Kyle, you and I will be discussing Season 3, Episode 2, which was titled Bad White, and was written by the writing duo David Weddell and Bradley Thompson. Previously, they wrote the episodes in Season 2, Fallen Light, which was a flashback episode from when Nora met F for the first time. They wrote Intruders, which was the bidding war episode. Oh, yeah. They wrote By Any Means, where F and Nora convince a couple to be experimented on, and many others from Season 1, including Season 1, Episode 2, The Box. Their episodes tend to be, in my opinion, a little bit disjointed and scattered, and I think that you and I could probably agree, and harp on a couple of the same themes, which are things like the master's body and the power that it holds. Kelly always sort of having a horrific appearance almost. Some kind of a medical discovery, and tunes of F and Nora. So I thought it was interesting because I was looking back on the episodes that they wrote previously, and there's just these themes that they seem to always be touching on. Yeah,
no, and that's kind of an amazing list you compiled there, and I wish I could pretend that I remembered all those episodes. What struck me about this episode is that it just felt like The Strain again.
Yes.
You know? Like, just in big picture terms, like we were right back where we've been for two years now.
Yeah.
This was not even bad, I would say. I think that there were good moments of this episode and some good character work and some really good scenes. But that is The Strain. You know, even in its worst moments, The Strain has good moments. You know, The Strain can have a bad episode that has good moments, and the show, I think, has been largely defined by this inconsistency, not just from episode to episode, but from scene to scene. Mm-hmm. And that was this episode. It's like we have some stories that I thought really clicked and advanced, and some stories that I just didn't understand the direction or why we were following these characters or what the show was trying to accomplish. It just felt like we were killing time.
And I mean, one thing I thought, I agree with everything you just said, but the other thing is like the disjointedness of the city, not just the last episode, the thing you and I were so, I guess, like proud of The Strain was that like the apocalypse had been ushered in, people were trading food out of cars, there were a lot of people that, like F was living in and out of like the lab and his old house, and everything is deserted and it seems very apocalyptic. And then you open this episode with Fett in a bar buying booze with money and then going to have sex at a fancy hotel.
That is a tremendous point.
Immediately I was like, this isn't right.
That bar scene was baffling. the fact that we introduced this female character and within 30 seconds she's having raucous sex with Fett, like, what are we doing? what is happening here? Like, what am I watching? Why is this a thing? And yeah, what you just brought up, like, why is the world so normal again? Why are people meeting at a bar? This is some, some season 2 stuff, some season 1 stuff, and now season 3, the first episode went so far towards setting this tone. And this episode, it felt like this could have been day 3 or day 7 or day 18. Like, the last episode made us so aware of this timeline. This episode could have occurred at any point in that timeline. Like, there was nothing specific in terms of, like, the atmosphere in the world about why, like, it didn't feel any more advanced than previous seasons.
No, it did not. No. I mean, I think the only point of that scene was that they needed to show that Fett has in some way, shape, or form moved on from Dutch, and the only way that they could do that was to write a normal scene because they couldn't think of a way that he might get laid in the apocalypse. If it's right, that's what I was thinking. But
that female character has to come back, right? She had
Kate?
Too much personality.
Yeah,
Kate. She's gonna be some kind of recurring character.
Yeah, and she's definitely military based on the shirt that she was wearing,
yes.
And she was wearing actually like an armband that's a survival armband. Like, you can do like 50 things with this armband. All my military friends keep trying to make me buy it. That's the only reason I know. It was like a little detail where they were like, for those who know.
Yeah, but no, it was good because like I was interested in that character until she immediately slept with Fett. But she could still like make me. I could get re-interested in her if they do something interesting with her, because. Yeah, the show needs more female characters. It needs more strong female characters, and if she's going to be like a take charge personality who can, hold her own against the Strigoi, then yeah, sure, that's a good introduction for the show to have.
Yeah, no, I agree. We definitely need more female protagonists since we're dropping them like flies. But we did, speaking of female protagonists, we did get to see Dutch for the first time this season.
And okay. I just have one question, and that question is why.
Which part?
Why? No, there is no. I'm not. There's no subtext. Why? Why the strain is this happening? Like, I'm already like. It feels like we're 40 minutes into the podcast already, just from thinking about Dutch.
I know. I want to root for her so bad.
Okay, I'll say this. I'm pulling myself together. I think I like the actress. I've sort of come around on her. I think she's doing a good job, and I think she did a really good job in this episode. It's still problematic that the show cast someone who, and I'm trying not to be like a weird guy commenting on female appearances, but it is weird that this character is like the prettiest woman in the world. It's very weird that the hacker character is, because you see her in this episode and she's on the streets wearing the rattiest clothes possible, but also she has like long flowing blonde hair and she's with a bunch of like hipster randos. And it's like she is so out of place.
And her makeup is perfect.
Her makeup is perfect.
That's the part that I'm always like Nora was. Again, we're doing that thing where we're talking about women, but like everybody else are really attractive people who aren't taking a lot of care to look good. And like male or female, Nora didn't do it. Feraldo maybe wears a little mascara. And then, obviously F's letting his head go a little bit, but like everybody kind of just looks like people and she just walks around looking like a model.
That's what I mean. I mean, if you're on television, there's a very, very good chance you're a beautiful person. What I mean by commenting on how weird it is that she's so beautiful is that the show plays it up. Mm-hmm. The show, obviously, like you're saying, like her makeup is always done. She always looks like a model. And it's just so weird in a story like this where we're supposed to buy into her being this like looter. But again, she looks like a model and she's with a bunch of guys and it's like she has this accent. It's like, how did these people ever meet each other?
She's with all these hipsters who also have their hair all done real nice and they're all wearing like really hipster outfits and they look super cool.
I just don't get it. I don't like. I guess like a really baseline test for like should this character be in this episode is if you just replace Dutch in that story, told the exact same story, but replaced her with a random made-up character, would we have lost anything?
No, it would be the exact same story.
Everything, it was literally just a plug and play story. We need to give a character this story. Oh, let's give it to Dutch.
Right.
Great. It's there was nothing specific to her about it. Have we forgotten that she's a hacker? Can't she hack something? Because that's her one definable skill.
They did. Yeah, they did bring up it. I just rewatched the episode before we were recording. They did bring that up in the dialogue. Braden, by the way, is the guy. People were calling Bingo, but they couldn't name him.
But he was named.
He was named. His name.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. His name is Braden. She was talking to Braden, and he was like, "Oh, remember how we talked about how we're going to make the world a better place?" Totally taking jabs at Mr. Robot, by bringing all the corporations down, blah blah blah. And that's the only piece of dialogue that is that matters at all to Dutch's character in the entire episode is she goes, "This is the apocalypse, man."
Yeah, right.
This is the end of the world. This is more serious than taking down a bank.
Well, first of all, if the strain is taking shots at Mr. Robot, that's like Porky Pig taking shots at the big bad wolf. You are biting off so much more than you could chew the strain. If you are going to start taking Mr. Robot shots, maybe pick on a show your own size.
Yes. But yeah, no, I agree otherwise that that could have been Bet and a gang of randos. Yeah. That could have been Gus with a bunch of gang members. Yeah.
I'm sure, well, I'm not sure. I suspect maybe that there will be a Dutch story this season that stems from that and maybe draws on that in some way. But I mean, I just as of right now, TV is an episodic medium, and we watched a television episode, and that Dutch story was nonsensical. Yeah, it was as generic as generic gets, which has been the Strain's problem all along. When we talk about back early season 2 when the Vaughn's team back when Vaughn was a character, they just randomly decide to storm Palmer's tower and they all get killed. It's why did they do that? Why was that the moment? You're just these stories are such cannon fodder. It's we got to fill an hour. We need a B story. Well, let's just give Dutch something to do. Mm-hmm. It's that can't be your storytelling in season 3 of a television show. Right. And when you only have a 10-episode season that's supposed to cut out this kind of BS. Yeah. That was the whole reason they cut 3 episodes off the season is so that we could avoid the exact moment that happened in this episode, which is a useless Dutch story.
Right, which is not to say that we don't want her on the screen. I agree with you that Ruta Gudmentes is doing a really good job with that performance, and there's parts of it that's interesting. I think they kind of showcase that she might have some trauma still from Eichhorst a little bit because she hyperventilated and they got to show her be really cool and cut off her friend's head.
That was a good moment, but also would have been a good moment for Gus, would have been a good moment for Fett, etc., etc.
It's so generic and bland and they just throw whatever flavor of whatever character they've inserted as opposed to writing something specific for them. Yeah, I agree.
Ideally they could come up with a way, because obviously I do understand the purpose of it, which is, as you said, to establish where she is mentally, really. Mm-hmm. And this sort of this is the apocalypse mindset. She has fully embraced the idea that the end of the world is here, and she is now behaving as such, which is a good thing, and a good thing for that character, because last season she spent chasing relationships. She has finally realized that she is not in a romantic comedy, which is progress. But you would like to see the show also connect to the story element of that, not just the character element. You want to see them carry over some meaningful story and convey that character information in a better package. And instead they just they brought back her little looting team, her hacking looting team, wielding golf clubs, going into skyscrapers and looting in order to convey that character information. And unless both those aspects work, it just falls flat. And that's what happened here. It just fell flat because the story was so dull and generic.
Yeah, although we did get the opportunity to see some Strigoi in some weird costumes. So that was good. The ballroom gown Strigoi was pretty awesome.
We have gone too long without talking about Zach.
Oh my god, I knew that was going to happen.
We have to address Zach.
What about him?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything needs to be addressed about Zach in this episode. I am genuinely perplexed about his mental state.
I am too.
I am. The end of this episode confused me possibly more than I have ever been confused on the string.
Oh, about him getting the white?
No, I get that. Like, they established that. What I don't get is, okay, my baseline understanding of Zach. I've never understood Zach that well, but I thought I had a grasp on that he had to have witnessed his mother deploying her stinger like multiple times last season.
So as I said, I just rewatched it. They show in the flashback scene Kelly kill Nora by injecting her. So she does that, and then she grabs Zach by the arm in full vampire form. Like, she's not wearing the wig and makeup. She's like
she's vamped out.
She's scary vampire at that point. Yeah. He watches her do that to Nora and then gets taken away by Kelly. Yes. So he has absolutely seen her deploy her stinger.
And that was the culmination of an entire season in which she was pursuing him by stalking around the outside of their building and trying to get in.
Yeah.
Like, if I understood anything about the Zach character, it was that he had witnessed his mother being, like, he had accepted, he didn't like, but he had accepted that his mother was a vampire. And so, the way I rationalized Zach's mindset in episode 1 was that, okay, he is doing one of two things, and either would have been acceptable. The first is that Zach was taken against his will. He realizes that he's in a very difficult situation, and he is sort of biding his time, appeasing his mother until he can find an opportunity to escape. That seems like a very par-for-the-course story that you could tell about a child who has been taken by his vampire mother.
Yeah.
Fine. That seems like a reasonable option. Option number 2. He is so sick of F's uselessness that he has turned on humanity and has willingly joined this Team Strigoi and was maybe having some second thoughts after seeing the brutality, but is still generally supportive of the sort of vampire stuff. That's a little bit bold, but okay, I could get there. Like, I can get that. Like, he's humanity's betrayer, you know, like Palmer, basically. Like, okay, yeah, he sided with the vampires. He's a kid. He can make some choices. What I did not see coming is option 3, which this episode confirmed is the case, which is that he was in denial or ignorance that his mother even was a vampire. Oh, what? Because his reaction to seeing her feed, which, as you said, he has seen before, was like utter horror and shock.
Which caused an asthma attack. Which
the master cured. Why? Did he not know she did that? He's seen her do that. What was Zach's mindset?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I mean, I think the one thing I do remember very distinctly from last season was Zach having incredible denial over his mother being a vampire. But as you said, watching him kill his mother figure, Nora, I feel like would have solidified that in his mind. Yes.
Or living with Kelly now for
a week.
You know, a week.
It was
a week.
Confirmed that this episode that it was a week.
So it's been a week that he's been living in captivity by his vampire mother, and she's doing like creepy vampire stuff, like smelling his neck. Like, obviously, like, he has to know. Like, I know kids like can put mental blocks up, and like I understand he's a child. He has to know. He can't not know.
She also says early in the episode to him something about it all being a part of the master's plan, and that's why he has to stay down there. And it's like, he knows who the master is. Yeah. He's like 12. He's smart enough to know that means his mother's a vampire. I mean, all of these connections.
And F explicitly told him so. And she chased them the whole last season, and they got into multiple fights with her. And then she, in full vampire form, vampire murdered Nora in front of his eyes. Like, how can he not know?
So the only thing that I've decided to gather from this, as it were, and try to convince myself that they weren't dumb enough to write it that way, is that the person who she's feeding on is a boy about his age that looks kind of like him.
Okay.
Like, that's the part.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, the first time I saw it, the first time I watched the episode, I thought, that's weird that she's drinking the blood of a 12-year-old boy. And then I watched it again. I was like, oh, he really looks like Zach. Like, maybe he's seeing, like some sort of weird, creepy desire she has to eat her own son, because she's definitely, like, wants to bring him over. That's what their instinct is. That's the drive of the Strigoi, is to bring their dear ones over to the other side with them so they can be together there. So that's the only sense that I was able to make of it, was that she's doing a substitute or something. Yeah. Like instead of it's a meat substitute, I'm going to have tofu, but it's a different 12-year-old boy.
Okay, well, now you've made sense of it, and it would have been awesome if the show had made that even a little bit clearer. Like, if the show had made any effort not to hang that character out to dry for the 400th time. Like, what an insane reaction that was. And it's like, they could have had one line of dialogue where he was like, "You're eating a kid who looks like me, you want to eat me." It's like, that's it, that's all I need. I get it now. He's freaking out because she's feeding on someone who looks like him. Like, but there's no indication that he processed that or you know, like, I've never seen a show be more, like, uncaring of what its audience thought about a supposedly sympathetic character. Like, they go so far out of their way to make Zach unsympathetic. I can't even fathom it. Like, they don't even take, like, basic fundamental steps towards making that character relatable or sympathetic to the audience. I can't imagine what they are thinking with that character.
I think that they think that I think they think that he is, in the audience's eyes, younger and therefore able to make more mistakes.
Well, he also grew like 8 inches in the last week, we should probably point out.
Yeah, and his voice dropped. Like, you can tell he's trying to make his voice higher. Like, I mean, but even when the kid first came on the screen, he was definitely absolutely 11, right? Right. And I think that this happens pretty often in television, actually, where they write kids that age to be more like 5-year-olds. Or to be as sympathetic as a 5-year-old, when a 12-year-old is not as sympathetic as a 5-year-old. It's a very different age gap. They have a very different ability to take care of themselves. So he is probably 13 or 14 now, playing an 11-year-old, but being treated like he's a 5-year-old. And that's the part that I think is the really difficult part. And that's hard when you're telling a story that takes place, it's been 23 days, it's been 3.5 weeks. It's hard to, or probably, exactly 3.5 weeks at this point. Yeah. It's hard when your actor definitely ages really rapidly, but at the same time, like, you have to not treat him like he's 5 because he wasn't 5 when we started.
Well, also, last season, he was the one person who broke through Dutch's hack shield or whatever. Oh. Remember, he accessed the internet by, like, hacking the IP address? Right. That's what's so appalling about the Zach character. It's not the performance. The performance is so, like, not the issue here. It's that there's such incoherence with who that character is, how old he is, like you're saying, where he is mentally, like what his state of mind is. It is so, like, adapted to meet the needs of the storytelling as opposed to based on, like, what the character would actually feel, that it's insulting. Like, that's, like, the way that they expect the audience to, like, go along with Zach on these journeys is just, like, insulting, that they would think that that's all we need. Like, Zach he's upset at his mother again. Like, no, tell a story. Like, figure out what Zach thinks and be consistent with that. It's just so inconsistent with what that character who that character even is from episode to episode.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm totally on board with that. We only have a couple minutes left, so I want to make sure that we get the chance to talk about F finding the team again.
Yeah. Yeah. I talked so much about the bad stuff. I wanted to talk about the good stuff in this episode because there was good stuff.
There was good stuff. I thought
Yeah.
F and Quinlan were great together. They have good chemistry.
Yeah, F comes up with the world's worst plan, as is his specialty.
Yes.
And to the show's credit and Quinlan's credit, he sniffs it out like easier than anyone would have ever thought possible. Like, Quinlan is on to F from the get-go and is never fooled for 1 second.
Yes.
Which is good. That's realistic. Quinlan is a lot smarter than F.
Yes, and has been around, as he said, a long time.
Yeah. And Quinlan makes sense because he realizes that the Master cares about F. The Master wants, F is the dude who came up with the vampire killing treatment that's been effective but is losing effectiveness now that Feraldo is deploying. Like, F has significance to the Master, and Quinlan is thinking like, hey, I can use that. Mm-hmm. I get the fact that the Master wants to turn F is something that is very appealing to Quinlan as a means of bait, and he actually proposes a very sensible plan, and I am much happier that seems to be the story direction as opposed to F working against the team as a mole.
Yeah, no, that could have been really difficult to watch.
Would have been bad.
Yeah.
So this is much better. F and Quinlan working together, sort of getting F back into the fold.
Yeah, although points to Corey Stoll for portraying F as trying to be casual and being as uncasual as possible, but in a way that's comedic.
Yeah.
Laying back, smoking a cigar, like it's no big deal. Everything's cool, guys. I don't feel sad that Zach's gone.
I'm not suspicious.
Exactly. So points to Corey Stoll for that performance.
Yeah, it was another good Fett episode too. Other than the weirdness in the bar, but that was more setting than anything. But I liked Fett's. I like what he's up to this season. Mm-hmm. He seems to very much be in action hero mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Palmer, about
I got Palmer back.
Trying to flip sides to get the white.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene where, because that's one of the very few times when I think the strain didn't telegraph its intentions fully.
Right.
Where Palmer is appealing to Abe and saying he'll take himself out of the game. I genuinely don't know how sincere Palmer was, or if he was sincere, if he could pull himself out of the game. Because wouldn't the Master just show up and kill him if he did that?
In theory.
Yeah, because I mean, again, when Palmer defied the Master last time, there goes Coco.
Right.
So it's I was. During that scene, I didn't know if Palmer was fully meaning it, or if Palmer could even back it up if he did mean it.
Right.
But I like that. I like that uncertainty. I like not knowing, and I think Abe made a very sensible and in-character choice that paid off the backstory that we saw, which is that Abe doesn't trust Palmer for 1 second. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to sell out and take that deal. He's got his ideals. He's got the lumen. He is not going to, cut a deal with someone who's clearly not trustworthy.
Absolutely. And he continued beyond that. He continued to have really good moments with Fett this episode as well. Which is, obviously they're building that up for some kind of heartbreak down the line, but but the closeness that those two have, and the fact that Fett has been present through those arguments and with Palmer, it's very interesting to see that duo, because that's really the duo that works on the show. And the guy who plays Palmer, I don't have his name up right now, but he we've been back and forth on his performance, but I like Desperate Palmer.
He is so much better in this mode than he is in the sort of smarmy hero of the universe dating a woman 40 years younger than him mold.
Yeah.
This to me is Palmer, someone who is coming to terms with a decision that he made that he regrets, and who is very unfamiliar with the emotion of regret. And he is starting to realize he might be in over his head.
Yes.
And that to me is such a more relatable dilemma than the one the show tried to pawn off on us last season of feeling for him and making him relatable because he's dating a woman 40 years younger than him. This is a much better way to humanize Palmer, is to portray him as someone who has made a grave mistake and is now realizing that he's powerless.
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually working for him and Eichhorst as well. Because when they're peacocking each other last season, it's, as you're saying, like, it didn't really work. Like, oh, I've got the power. No, I've got the power. No, I've got the power. And now with Eichhorst really sort of being in the power position, it makes that duo even more interesting as well.
Absolutely. The show's doing a much better job this season at establishing the Strigoi's power over humans, which is something that we talked about last week and we talked about throughout the podcast about how it's been kind of inconsistent exactly how effective they are. You know, like the Master always losing when he gets in a confrontation. Like we've seen now the Master 2 episodes in a row, which I feel like is something that hasn't happened that often.
No.
Since the first season, since he sort of took over Bolivar's body. It seems like we would go long stretches without any Master, and now he's appeared in both the episodes. And I think that's a very conscious choice on the show's behalf.
Yes, to make it more terrifying.
To make him more present.
Yeah.
You know, as the bad guy and as this scary force. And now, like you said, changing the dynamic where Palmer is not an equal of Eichhorst. Eichhorst has the full power over him. Palmer is serving at Eichhorst's behest. And that is a much more interesting dynamic that I think does a lot more for the show's storytelling than what it was in season 2.
Absolutely. But I think all in all, this episode was, as we said, back to the par for the course, but there were good elements, and I'm still very hopeful about this season. I haven't lost hope.
Yeah, no, it's tough because I was hopeful for a better vision of what the show is, and this episode kind of reset my expectations to where I'm now sort of just hoping the show is a better version of itself. Mm-hmm. You know, like just does a better job at being the strain that it's done in past seasons. Whereas I was kind of, after episode 1, I was kind of thinking it might have been a little bit more transformed than that. But it could still be a good season. And you know, there's still plenty of stuff left to happen and who knows where it goes. But this was, I think had this been the premiere, I would have been generally happy with it. If based on my expectations from previous seasons, I think I would have generally been okay with this episode. I think what really was disappointing is after the first episode was so good and so interesting and so different, to kind of get back to the show as it was.
Yeah, I agree with that wholly. Well, now it's time for us to interview the first winner of season 3's The Strain Bingo, which is hashtag The Strain Bingo. The winner was Michael Cancelero, and he won for season 3, episode 1, which was titled New York Strong. Be sure to play The Strain Bingo with us on Twitter every week, and you might also get a chance to be on the show.
And joining us now is this season's first Strain Bingo winner, Michael Cancelero. Michael, welcome to the Strain Podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're very excited to have you. We've been tweeting with you for at least the last season, if not the last 2, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's been the last couple, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to be able to get you on the show. This is awesome. You were our first bingo winner for season 3. You won for season 3, episode 1, which was New York Strong. And your bingo was the Oxidolumin, a near miss, Feraldo kicking butt, Eichhorst with his mad sass, and a motherly Kelly.
Absolutely.
What we like to do when we have folks on the show is, first of all, thanks again. We're so glad that you hang out with us on Twitter and listen to the show. That's pretty awesome. But we want to ask you a couple questions about how you feel about the strain. So what is your favorite character, Michael?
I'd have to say my favorite character is Eichhorst.
Yes.
Nice. Every time he's on the screen, no matter what he's doing, you just can't look away. He's got it hands down for me.
Oh yeah, Richard Samuel is a captivating actor. That performance is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been the one constant in the show. You know, that just from the get-go, when Eichhorst is on screen, it's a good scene, and that has never changed throughout the 2+ seasons now.
Yes.
Okay, second question. What is your favorite Strain episode to date?
I think probably I really enjoyed the first of this season, but I think the Creatures of the Night I think was a really exciting episode for me.
Yeah, that's Kyle and I, as we've said many times on the podcast, that is our favorite episode, and we wish that every episode were the quality of Creatures of the Night.
Yeah.
I think Creatures of the Night stands out so much because it was so different than every other episode that season. And there were some good season 1 episodes and some good season 2 episodes for that matter, but it was just so like structurally different. You know, it was so contained, and you know, we've talked about it being a bottle episode, but there was just something about it with the intensity and the pacing that it really felt like a little action movie.
Oh, absolutely. Just the steady tension, and also you got to learn a little bit about some of the characters a little better too. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about The Strain when it works like that, which is that you learn so much more from seeing the characters put under pressure in like 1 minute than you do from 10 minutes of exposition. You know,
yes,
just seeing them in that situation, you actually learn things about them. So that leads into our final question, which is, you know, Blaire and I are want to give our opinions on this podcast, so we want to get your opinion on this series as a whole. What are some like big picture thoughts you have on The Strain?
Big picture, I really want to love The Strain.
Thank you.
Don't we all?
I'd like the writers to kind of meet me halfway. That would be good. Yeah, it seems it's not a really consistent show. Mm-hmm. You know, so sometimes they'll really hit it out of the park, and then the next episode, not so much. I said a lot of the times. I think I told you guys during season 2, probably if it weren't for the live tweeting and the listening to the podcast, I didn't know if I would stick around for season 3 if it weren't for that, because that's what fills in the slow spots, is between your live tweets and the other listeners. You got some funny people on Twitter. It seems like even when the show's not doing well, I'm laughing my head off at some of the tweets that are going out. So I kind of enjoy the whole. It's a 3-part thing. It's watch it, live tweet it, and then listen to the podcast. So.
Oh, well, thank you. That made me feel awesome. No, I think that the live tweeting has definitely sort of become its own animal, right? Like, I feel like that's where we're all struggling to love this thing, because most of us don't, but we're all creating this funny little community, and I have the same experience where I'm kind of miserable watching it, but I'm having a great time interacting with all of you guys.
I completely agree that the show is inconsistent, but what I'm finding, and this is crystallized, you know, over the seasons that we've watched, is that my experience watching The Strain on Sunday nights is actually a very consistent experience, because during those bad episodes that we all know and don't love, the tweeting gets funnier, because it's much funnier to tweet about Dutch Velder's romantic adventures than it is about Creatures of the Night. You know, it's much funnier.
Yes.
It's much funnier to make jokes about Coco than it is to like comment on like good scenes. And so when the show is good, the tweeting sort of takes a back seat. But when the show is bad, the tweeting gets better. And so, like, I know that when I watch The Strain on Sunday nights, I'm going to enjoy myself. It just depends on what the source of that enjoyment's going to be.
No, absolutely. Hopefully it's coming from the show, but if not, we're going to find it on our own.
It's a good fallback, good backup plan.
I actually have a surprise question for you, and we can totally, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if there was a Strain bingo square that you could put in there that you think that we don't have, is there one that you would think of?
Oh, one you don't have.
Oh, I'm sure they exist.
Yeah, I don't know. We've had so many surprises. I mean, the French-made Strigoi. I doubt that's going to pop up again.
Well,
yeah. See, if that becomes a trope on the show, I would be really surprised.
What I think could work there is Strigoi in a service uniform.
Yeah.
there you go.
Right? That's a pretty good, like, a Strigoi dressed in a noticeable way. would actually, I think, be a great square.
I do too.
But I think one that I had tweeted, though, I think it was even last season that I was wearing out the German sass square.
Oh yeah.
And for this last episode, I think Kyle tweeted out that you should have just made that one free space. I mean, when Eichhorst was walking across the track, he was walking with sass. Yeah. I mean, it was just.
I would have accepted that for the square, by the way, if he didn't have a line. that is an exception. Yeah, he had literally one line in the premiere episode, and it was a sass line, like unquestionably
exactly.
A sass line.
And he wasn't in Palmer's office for half a second before he let out a sass line for this episode.
Right. That's one of the things I think also about the strain, outside of just the live tweeting community. There are little pockets of things that are great that keep us coming back. And I think the Eichhorst character is such a good bad guy that even people who sort of feel down on the strain always want to come back for him. He's so memorable, and he's one of those characters that even if people don't remember the show in the future, people who watch the show will remember that really sassy vampire.
Oh, absolutely. I think that he will definitely live out. I think Kevin Durant as Fett is another just amazing character. He tends to do well regardless of what they give him.
Yes, exactly. Kevin Durant's phenomenal in that performance.
Yeah.
And I think that those are the two, you've identified the two actors/characters who are like definitely having fun with it, which I think is probably the right tone for this show, is have fun with it. Enjoy yourself, get a little bit hammy, get a little bit sassy. That I think is what specifically makes those performances stand out.
Yeah, they really do make the most of it. And that's really what if you're watching vampires, either be scary or be funny.
Right.
And I think they really do well with both of those.
That's very true. That's the reason I came to the strain, the book series, is because the vampires were scary again, and I like scary vampires. The TV show, sometimes.
It's hit or miss.
Yes. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. How can other fellow live tweeters hang out with you on Twitter when you're watching the strain?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. It's Mr. Cance. It's MR_CANC. And I'm usually wasting my time spouting nonsense about TV shows.
Aren't we all?
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad that we could get you on the show.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Before we go, I want to mention a few things. You can download and subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. You can also hear all of our podcasts at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Please subscribe to the show and also rate us. Follow the show on Twitter @TheStrainPod, and Kyle and I @KyleLovesTV and @BlaireLovesTV. And remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. Send us fan mail @thestrainpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to play #TheStrainBingo with us every week on Twitter for a chance to be on the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.